Today we're working on a 2007 Nissan Altima. We're going to be replacing the exhaust manifold catalytic converter unit and then also the rear catalytic converter at the same time. So if you need to replace one or both, stay tuned. We'll show you how to do it. First, we take this piece off. It's a 10 mil here, 10 mil on the other side, and that pulls away. And then we'll take the engine cover off as well, and that's a 5mm Allen. So let's do that first. Give us some room. Once those are out of the way, we got plenty of room to work. We want to go ahead and disconnect the battery because we'll be removing the alternator next. So now we have to remove the serpentine belt. In order to do this, we have to jack the car up, take the tire off, and pull this plastic panel off. It has these clips. Usually, for the most part, they just come off with a screwdriver. You just kind of wiggle it. Oh, that's not how you do it. No. So these might be incredibly brittle. You can get two screwdrivers, one on one side, one on the other, and kind of pry it off, and then they pop off. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like just 5 of these clips that hold it in. So you can see right here, that's the tensioner pulley. It takes a 14mm. I wasn't able to get a socket in there, at least with what I have. So this is a 14mm crow's foot, just on a bar. So you could put that in like that, and it turns clockwise. So in that direction, you turn it. You don't have to take the entire belt off. You just off one pulley so we can loosen it so we can get it off the alternator pulley. So I just took the belt off of the tensioner pulley. So that's all I did down here. And going up top, you can just slide it off the alternator. If I can get room in there with my hand. Things never work out on camera. Anyway, let me get that with 2 hands to get these off. It's a clip here. That's a 12mm, 10mm. This stuff's really crumbly and brittle for me, but these just pry up if they don't break, and that gets this disconnected electrically. Once all that is disconnected, you have one 14mm here, and then down right there is another 14mm. Once those 2 are off, this should just pop right out. So a couple hang-ups. One, I had to remove the coolant reservoir. It's just a 10mm bolt here, and it just pops up, and that gave me better access to the lower bolt down here for the alternator. It won't come out as is. You have to take this bracket off here, and those are 2 14mm right there. Bracket will come out, then this can come. So that was kind of an oversight, but anyway, once this is kind of moved out of the way, then you can get to those bolts pretty easy to get room. I tried snaking around here. I don't want to damage the AC line. You might be able to bend that to get it out that way, but I'm gonna just remove this because I think we have to remove it anyway to get to the exhaust. So all right, alternator's out of the way. So now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a hidden one right down there. Makes 5 for this upper shield, and they are all 10mm. If you have the ability to use some kind of impact, I recommend it. Definitely spray them down. I just use some liquid wrench on them, let them sit for a little while. Really, all the exhaust bolts that you'll be taking off, be a good idea before you even get started doing what we're doing. Douse everything down real good, and it gives it time to sit while you're getting up to this point. All right, let's get these out. Pray nothing breaks. If it does, you're replacing the manifold anyway. We'll just have to purchase a new bolt is all. So really no big deal. So heat shield's off. That worked out pretty good. I only had 1 break, so 1 out of 5 isn't bad at all. And I think there's enough length to it still that it can be used again. So the O2 sensor, just unplug it, have it come out. It's easier to pull off once it's out of the vehicle. Well, it's not bad pulling it off here, but I'm gonna leave it on. So just unplug it here, and then we'll get under the car and unbolt that portion of it. Then we'll come back up while these are soaking, and then we'll come back up and get these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I believe they're 14, yep, 14 mil. But let's hold off on that. Let's go to the bottom and do our stuff down there. So here we are underneath the vehicle. We have 3 16mm bolts there, and then on the other side. And for me, it's easy to use a impact with a 3-inch extension. All right, got all 3 of them off, so now it's just loose there. So now we can go up top and get those manifold bolts out. So again, these up top are 14. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's not room for any of my impacts up here, so I'm just gonna hand brake them. Hopefully they don't break, but hopefully they'll just come loose. It was a little scary, but they all broke loose. So now it should just slide off and then up. It's pretty heavy, so I'm not gonna do it one-handed, but and then up, and it should come right out. So that's what it looks like with everything out. On this front pipe here, there's a little ring washer, or not washer, but gasket, that pops off. So if all you're doing is this intake manifold catalytic converter, then take that gasket off. New one comes with the converter. Put your new intake manifold gasket on, intake manifold, and then put it back together. But we're gonna replace this lower pipe too. So if you're doing that, follow along. We'll get that off. Really, it's super simple from this point, but after that, then we'll put it all back together. So if you want, you can skip ahead to that part. So back under the car, this pipe has another O2 sensor. So you can unplug it here and then just keep the sensor on. This pipe, we'll take it off later. And then this hanger is 2 14mm bolts, and this hanger comes off. And then we got those. I believe those are the same as the front, 16. Yeah, they are 16mm, and they're a little more rusty on this back one than the front, so we might have some fun getting those off. But anyway, 16mm, there's 2, one on each side, and then this whole piece should slide out. So FYI, these are not 14, they're 13. Well, so these are not coming off. I'm not even making a dent in them. So this one just stripped. The other one isn't even budging at all. This isn't leaking, or hasn't leaked in the past, so I have a decision to make. I could get a welding torch, cut this out. This is a stud that goes through, so that's an issue. I think what I'm gonna do is just cut it here, and then cut the other one, the new one as well, right there. Put a connector pipe in between them, and then 2 U-clamps, and call it good. Otherwise, I'll be fighting this forever, trying to get that off. I cut them off with a torch, but then I need to get the stud out to put a new stud in, so. Okay, so I changed my approach. I went ahead and cut this bolt off. I was able to heat this side up and zip it out. So now I just need a new stud for this side. And that'll just be a nice clean installation. Instead of cutting it like I said before and clamping it, it'll be like how it's supposed to be. So my next move, I'm gonna put this pipe on last. I'm gonna go back up and put the exhaust manifold on first. Now go ahead and make sure your gasket surface is clean and as flat as possible, and then we can go ahead and put our exhaust manifold catalytic converter over the top of that. Alright, exhaust manifold is just laying there. And I forgot to mention, go ahead and transfer over all the heat shields and everything that you can. Heat shields are important, so try to do your best to get those back on. And anything else that needs to be transferred over. I was not able to get the O2 sensor out of the other one. I tried heat and everything, it just would not come out, so we got another one ordered. Think about that too before you start this project. If you're doing this DIY, you may need to order new O2 sensors. Alright. And then, so next is to tighten these bolts. We could put the nuts on, tighten those down to 29 to 32 foot-pounds. So we'll do that next. Alright, these are all torqued. Usually I'll torque them down once and then go through it one more time just to double check torque. After that's on, now we can go ahead and put our upper heat shield on, and then we can get to assembling the alternator back together again. To get the alternator on easier, go ahead and take your long bolt, thread it in a few times, and tap on this that way, and you can see here, this will get pushed more, and you can make it flush with this, because this is like a pinch type. So when you tighten this down on the car, this gets sucked in, and it kind of pinches it onto the arm on the car. So thread it in, give it a few taps, make this flush, and it'll go on a lot easier. So we want to just set our alternator in there, because we need to put this bracket back on. So set the alternator in, put this bracket on, then we can get the alternator bolted in. I don't have torque specs for this bracket. They're pretty hefty bolts, but remember, you're going into an aluminum head. So good and tight, but not ridiculous. So I guess in this case, use your judgment, but remember, aluminum head, but at the same time, this bolt's kind of hefty as well. So it's meant to have some torque on it. Again, use your judgment on that part. But that's what's next, that bracket, then we can get the alternator on. Bracket and alternator are bolted in. We can go ahead and get our wiring back on, and then we'll put the belt on. Alright, got the belt back on. I was struggling with it. My tool here, 14mm, wasn't working the best because of the angles, so I just used a 14mm box end and just muscled that over just enough to get it on. It doesn't have to move a crazy amount, but it was more difficult than I wanted it to be. But anyway, belt's on. We can put this shield back on and our tire back on, and that'll button up the side here. And then on the top, we can put this bracket on, the cover, and then the air duct here. And that buttons it up. If all you're doing is the catalytic converter manifold, that'd be it. After I button all this up, I'm gonna go underneath and finish that last pipe. So down here, it's just a matter of cleaning off your surface. I had to put a new stud in. Put your exhaust gasket on. So that's that inside. To the front, you just have to make sure that you have this new gasket that goes on, and it goes on the pipe before you bolt it on to here. And that's pretty much it. So the pipe will go on the back side first, and then the flex, you'll be able to flex it on here, and then put the new bolts on, bolt the back, put all your hangers. Well, there's one hanger here, and then one kind of a cross bracket there, and that's pretty much it. I don't have torque specs on these, but you know, I'm guessing 25. Most gasket torques on exhaust are around 25, 30 foot-pounds. So anywhere in there, you should be fine. When you start it up, check for leaks. If it's leaking, then go ahead and snug it down some more until the leak stops. And if you're finding that you're really tightening it and the leak's still not stopped, then something else is wrong. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna put this on real quick, button it up, and then we can fire it up. Take it for a real good test drive to get the catalytic converter monitor to set. You need to take it on the highway at least, I think it's 50 or 55 miles an hour for a good chunk of time to get that catalytic converter monitor. Make sure the check engine light doesn't come back on, and that's it. You're good to go. Hope this was helpful. It's not an easy task, but if you are able to do it yourself, it's definitely a money saver for sure. All right, see you on the next one.